You wake up every morning and put on the same mask. The mask of someone who believes that being reasonable, polite, and patient will somehow lead you to the life you actually want. You speak carefully. You follow the rules. You wait for permission. And deep down, you know it's killing something inside you. Every conversation becomes a negotiation where you give away pieces of yourself. Every meeting where you nod along when you should speak up. Every moment you choose safety over truth, comfort over growth. You've become fluent in the language of limitation, and it's costing you everything. But what if I told you that the way you communicate isn't just about words? What if your entire relationship with money, power, and freedom comes down to how you speak, how you think, and how you command your own mind? I am Solomon. I built an empire not through luck or inheritance, but by understanding a fundamental truth that most people never grasp. The wealthy don't just speak differently, they think differently. They see opportunities where others see obstacles. They create systems where others create excuses. Today, you're going to learn the psychology behind persuasive communication. Not the surface tricks, not the manipulation tactics, but the deep mental frameworks that separate those who build wealth from those who simply work for it. This isn't about becoming a better employee. This is about becoming someone who thinks like an owner, speaks like a leader, and acts with the precision of someone who understands that every word carries weight. You're going to discover why your current approach to communication keeps you trapped in other people's systems, why the very way you've been taught to speak actually programs you for mediocrity, and most importantly, how to rewire your mind so that every conversation, every decision, every moment becomes a step toward the freedom you've been postponing for far too long. This isn't motivational fluff. This is the operating system of wealth. The same principles that built the fortunes of Carnegie, Rockefeller, and Ford. The same mental laws that I used to become the richest man in history. And if you're ready to stop speaking like someone who asks for permission and start commanding like someone who creates possibilities, then you need to hear every word of what comes next. Because here's the truth they don't want you to know. The people who control your paycheck, your schedule, and your future are counting on you to keep thinking small, speaking small, and acting small. They need you to believe that steady work and patient waiting will somehow set you free. But freedom isn't the reward for decades of obedience. It's the result of thinking, speaking, and acting like someone who was born to own, not to be owned. If you're done settling for scraps from someone else's table, if you're ready to learn how your words can become your wealth, then subscribe to this channel right now. Because what I'm about to teach you will change not just how you communicate, but how you see yourself. And that change starts today. Number 1. Modern slavery of work. You wake up every morning believing that your dedication will set you free. You dress in the uniform of respectability, commute through traffic that steals your life minute by minute, and arrive at a place where you exchange the most precious thing you own for numbers in an account that never grows fast enough. You call this work. You call this progress. You call this building a future. But I call it what it truly is. Modern slavery dressed in the clothes of opportunity. The chains that bind you are not made of iron. They are woven from routine, from the desperate need for security, from the belief that hard work alone will deliver you from financial bondage. Every morning you report to someone else's dream, spend 8 or 10 or 12 hours building someone else's wealth, and return home too tired to build your own. This is not the accident of a cruel world. This is the design of a system that needs you exactly where you are, productive enough to be valuable, but never free enough to be independent. Listen to me carefully. The man who works hard but owns nothing is like a powerful engine connected to someone else's machine. All that energy, all that force, all that potential creates movement and progress and profit, but none of it flows back to the source. You are the engine. Your boss, your company, your corporation is the machine. Your labor powers their wealth while you receive just enough fuel to keep running until tomorrow. I have watched civilizations rise and fall, and in each one, the same pattern emerges. The masses believe that loyalty to the system will be rewarded. They wake early, work late, save their small coins, and wait for the golden years of retirement to deliver them into freedom. But retirement is not freedom. It is the exhausted collapse of someone who spent their entire life building someone else's kingdom. By the time they receive permission to rest, their body is broken, their mind is tired, and their spirit has forgotten what it means to dream beyond survival. The tragedy of this modern slavery is not that it uses physical chains, but that it uses hope. Hope that tomorrow will be better. Hope that hard work will be noticed. Hope that playing by the rules will somehow change the rules in your favor. This hope becomes the very prison that keeps you trapped, because it convinces you that suffering today will purchase freedom tomorrow. But tomorrow's freedom is always one more year away, one more promotion away, one more raise away, one more decade away. Think of the farmer who spends his entire life growing crops on land he does not own. He works harder than anyone, knows every inch of soil, understands the seasons better than those who have never touched dirt. But when harvest comes, he receives only enough to survive until the next planting season. The landowner, who may never have set foot in the field, receives the abundance. This is your life in miniature. You are the farmer. Your skills, your time, your energy are the crops, but you do not own the field where your life grows. The system teaches you to measure success by how well you serve it. You are praised for arriving early, staying late, never complaining, never questioning, always adapting to what is required of you. These are not the qualities of a free man. These are the qualities of a valuable servant. The more valuable you become to someone else's enterprise, the less likely you are to risk building your own. Your competence becomes your cage. But here is the shift that changes everything. The moment you stop seeing work as your destination and start seeing it as your temporary vehicle, everything changes. Work is not evil. Work is not beneath you. Work is simply a tool, like money, like time, like knowledge. The question is not whether you will work. The question is whether you will work toward ownership or work toward dependency. The wealthy understand this distinction. They do not avoid work. They avoid working for someone else's exclusive benefit. Every hour they invest, every dollar they spend, every relationship they build moves them closer to owning systems instead of serving them. They work in the beginning so they do not have to work forever. You work forever because you never work toward ownership. Your assignment, if you are ready to break these invisible chains, is simple but not easy. Look at your current work not as your career, but as your funding source. Every dollar you earn, ask yourself, is this moving me toward ownership or toward deeper dependency? Every skill you develop, ask yourself, can I use this to build something that works without me? Or does this only make me more valuable to someone who will never set me free? The man who recognizes his slavery has taken the first step toward freedom. But recognition without action is just enlightened suffering. You must decide today whether you will spend the next decade becoming a better servant or whether you will spend it building the foundation of your own kingdom. The chains of modern slavery are strong, but they are not stronger than a mind that refuses to accept them as permanent. Number 2. The retirement lie. You have been sold the greatest lie in human history, and you bought it with your entire life. They told you to work hard for 40 years, save a little money, and then you would be rewarded with golden years of freedom and security. They painted pictures of beach chairs and golf courses, of grandchildren and peaceful mornings. They called it retirement, but what they really sold you was the promise that if you serve the system long enough, it will eventually set you free. This is not just false. This is cruel beyond measure. Retirement is not the reward for a life well lived. It is the consolation prize for a life half spent. It is permission to finally rest, given only when you are too old to use that rest for anything meaningful. It is like promising a starving man a feast, but only after his teeth have fallen out, and his stomach has forgotten how to digest food. The retirement they promise you is freedom, with an expiration date, delivered when you are too tired to enjoy it and too old to rebuild if it fails you. Think about this carefully. They ask you to give them the strongest years of your life, the years when your mind is sharp and your body is capable, and your spirit still burns with ambition. They ask you to sacrifice the decades when you could build empires, create legacies, and shape the world according to your vision. In exchange, they promise you the years when your energy is fading, your health is failing, and your time is running short. This is not a fair trade. This is theft disguised as planning. But the cruelest part of the retirement lie is not what it takes from your future. It is what it does to your present. It teaches you to live in constant deferral. Everything meaningful, everything adventurous, everything that requires courage or risk or bold action gets pushed to someday. Someday when you retire. Someday when you have enough money. Someday when you are free from responsibilities. But someday is the graveyard of dreams. And by the time you arrive there, you have forgotten what you wanted to do with your freedom. I knew a man once, brilliant in business, who spent 30 years building wealth for a corporation that promised him security. He worked 16-hour days, missed his children's childhood, postponed vacations, delayed dreams, all because he believed that retirement would give him time to make up for lost years. When he finally reached 65, the company restructured. His pension was cut. His health insurance became too expensive. His body, worn down by decades of stress and poor habits, could not enjoy the freedom he had purchased with his life. He died 3 years later, still waiting for his reward to become meaningful. This story is not exceptional. It is epidemic. Millions of people are living this tragedy right now, believing that suffering today will purchase happiness tomorrow. But happiness, real happiness, cannot be purchased with suffering. Freedom cannot be purchased with slavery. Wealth cannot be purchased with poverty. The retirement they promise you is based on a lie about how life works. The truth is this: the man who waits until 65 to be free has never learned what freedom means. Freedom is not the absence of work. Freedom is not the presence of money. Freedom is the power to choose your work, to control your time, to build your legacy while you are still young enough to enjoy building it. Freedom is not a destination you reach by serving someone else for decades. Freedom is a way of living that starts the moment you refuse to accept someone else's timeline for your life. The wealthy do not wait for retirement because they have already retired from the things that make retirement necessary. They have retired from trading time for money. They have retired from building other people's dreams. They have retired from living by other people's schedules. They work because they choose to, not because they have to. Their work serves their vision, not someone else's quarterly profits. Here is the shift that breaks the retirement delusion. Stop planning for someday and start building for today. Every year you spend preparing for retirement is a year you could spend creating the life that makes retirement irrelevant. Instead of saving for freedom 30 years from now, invest in building systems that give you freedom 3 years from now, or 3 months from now, or right now. This requires a complete reversal of how you think about money and time and security. Instead of asking how much you need to save to retire, ask how much passive income you need to become free. Instead of waiting for your employer to give you permission to rest, create income streams that work while you sleep. Instead of planning to be old and tired and financially dependent on systems you cannot control, plan to be young and energetic and wealthy from systems you own. The retirement lie survives because it sounds reasonable and feels safe. But reasonable and safe are the enemies of wealthy and free. Every day you spend building someone else's retirement fund instead of your own freedom fund is a day you cannot get back. Every month you spend believing that patience will be rewarded with security is a month that others are using to build the systems that will employ you until you die. The man who rejects the retirement lie does not reject planning. He rejects planning to be old and dependent. He plans to be young and free. He plans to have choices while he still has energy to act on them. He builds his wealth while his mind is clear and his body is strong and his spirit still burns with the fire of possibility. Stop waiting for permission to live your life. Stop believing that 30 years of service will purchase 10 years of freedom. Stop accepting the retirement lie as wisdom when it is the ultimate expression of how little the system values your actual life. Your freedom is not a reward for good behavior. It is your birthright, available the moment you stop serving the lie and start building the truth. Number 3, schools as factories of obedience. Every morning, millions of children file into buildings designed to break their spirit in the name of education. They sit in rows, speak only when permitted, move only when told, think only what is acceptable. They are taught that conformity is intelligence, that obedience is virtue, that following instructions is more valuable than asking questions. They call this learning, But what really happens in those classrooms is the systematic destruction of everything that makes a human being capable of creating wealth: curiosity, independence, original thought, and the courage to challenge what exists. The schools that shape your mind were never designed to set you free. They were designed during the Industrial Revolution to create factory workers, people who could follow directions, accept authority without question, perform repetitive tasks without complaint, and find satisfaction in being useful to someone else's enterprise. The bell that signals the end of one class and the beginning of another is the same bell that once called workers to their shifts. The demand for punctuality, the intolerance for deviation, the reward system based on compliance rather than innovation. These are not accidents of educational evolution. These are the deliberate construction of a system that needs employees, not entrepreneurs. Think about what happens to a child's natural creativity in this environment. A 5-year-old asks 100 questions a day. Why is the sky blue? How do birds know where to fly? What makes flowers grow? Each question is a spark of the kind of curiosity that leads to breakthrough discoveries. But by the time that same child reaches 15, they have learned not to ask questions that do not appear on the test. They have learned that the right answer is more important than the interesting answer. They have learned that being different is dangerous, that standing out leads to trouble, that the safe path is the one everyone else is walking. I want to tell you about a boy who was told he was too stupid to learn anything. His teachers said his mind was addled, that he asked too many disruptive questions, that he would never amount to anything. His mother pulled him from school after only 3 months because they wanted to put him in a class for slow learners. That boy was Thomas Edison, and his supposed inability to fit into the educational system led him to become one of the most prolific inventors in human history. What the school saw as defiance, he turned into genius. What they saw as inability to follow directions, he turned into the ability to create new directions. Edison's story is not unique. Henry Ford was considered a poor student. Richard Branson struggled with dyslexia and left school at 16. Albert Einstein was told by a teacher that he would never amount to much. The system that failed to recognize their potential or even actively worked against it now celebrates their achievements. But here is the deeper truth. It was not despite their educational struggles that they succeeded. It was because their minds remained unbroken by a system designed to create conformity. The tragedy of modern education is not that it fails to teach important skills. The tragedy is that it succeeds too well at teaching the wrong skills. It teaches you to wait for instructions rather than create opportunities. It teaches you to seek approval rather than seek results. It teaches you to avoid failure rather than learn from it. Most devastating of all, it teaches you to see yourself as someone who needs permission to think original thoughts and take bold actions. Nowhere in 12 or 16 years of schooling will you learn the principles that actually create wealth. You will never take a class on definite purpose, on the power of burning desire, on how to program your subconscious mind for success. You will never be taught that faith is a practical mental tool, not just a religious concept. You will never learn how to form a mastermind group, how to create multiple streams of income, or how to build systems that work without your constant presence. These subjects, which determine whether you live as an owner or an employee, are completely absent from curricula designed to produce employees. Instead, you learn to memorize information you will never use, to solve problems that have no connection to real wealth creation, and to accept grades as a measure of your worth. You learn that there is always someone above you who determines your value, someone whose approval you need to advance, someone who has the power to reward or punish your efforts. This conditioning does not end when you graduate. It continues into your work life, where you wait for performance reviews, seek promotions from bosses, and measure your success by how well you serve someone else's objectives. But here is the transformation that changes everything. The moment you realize that your real education begins when your formal education ends, you take back control of your mind. The moment you understand that everything you need to know about creating wealth exists outside the system that trained you to be an employee, you can start learning what actually matters. The wealthy are autodidacts. They are self-taught in the subjects that schools never cover. They study the biographies of successful people, not to pass a test, but to model proven strategies. They read about psychology and persuasion and marketing and systems thinking because these subjects directly impact their ability to create value in the world. They surround themselves with other people who are building wealth, not because it is assigned as group work, but because iron sharpens iron. Your assignment is to become the student you were before school taught you not to be curious. Start asking the questions that matter. How do wealthy people think differently than poor people? What systems can I build that will generate income without my constant labor? What skills do I need to develop that will make me valuable in the marketplace? How can I turn my unique combination of talents and interests into a profitable enterprise? The factory of obedience succeeded in conditioning you, but conditioning can be broken. The mind that learned to follow can learn to lead. The spirit that was taught to conform can remember how to create. But this transformation requires you to reject the fundamental premise of your education, that someone else is responsible for determining what you should learn and how quickly you should learn it. From this moment forward, you are both the teacher and the student of your own success. Number 4, work and its illusion of security. You cling to your job like a drowning man clings to driftwood, believing that as long as you hold tight, you will eventually reach shore. But what you think is your salvation is actually what keeps you from learning to swim. Your job is not your security. Your job is not your future. Your job is not even your present reality. Your job is a temporary arrangement that can end at any moment, for any reason, with or without your consent. Yet you have built your entire life around the illusion that this temporary arrangement is permanent, and this illusion is destroying your chances of ever becoming truly secure. Security is not having a job. Security is not needing a job. Security is owning assets that generate income whether you show up or not. Security is having skills that are valuable in any market condition. Security is controlling your own economic destiny, instead of placing it in the hands of people who have no obligation to care about your future. But the job, with its regular paycheck and its benefits package and its promise of yearly raises, creates the illusion that someone else is taking care of your security. This illusion is comfortable, but it is dangerous beyond measure. The modern workplace is designed to keep you just comfortable enough to stay, but never wealthy enough to leave. They give you enough money to pay your bills, but not enough to build substantial assets. They give you enough benefits to feel taken care of, but not enough to feel truly independent. They give you enough variety in your work to prevent complete boredom, but not enough autonomy to feel like you are building something meaningful. This is not accidental. This is the careful calibration of dependence. Think of a hamster running on a wheel. The hamster is working very hard, moving very fast, expending enormous energy. From the hamster's perspective, it is making progress, covering ground, getting somewhere. But from an objective view, the hamster is exactly where it started, no closer to any meaningful destination than when it began. The wheel provides the sensation of movement without the reality of progress. Your job is that wheel, and you are that hamster, working harder and harder while remaining exactly where you started, dependent on someone else for your survival. But let me tell you about a man who understood the difference between using work and being used by work. His name was Edwin C. Barnes. And when he first heard about Thomas Edison, he decided that he would become Edison's business partner. He had no money, no connections, no apparent qualifications for such a partnership. What he had was a definite purpose and the intelligence to use whatever work was available to serve that purpose. Barnes took a job in Edison's organization as a low-level clerk. To everyone else, he was just another employee, earning a modest wage, performing routine tasks. But Barnes never saw himself as an employee. He saw himself as Edison's future partner, who was temporarily doing clerical work. Every task he performed, every relationship he built, every piece of knowledge he gained was evaluated through one lens. Does this move me closer to partnership with Edison? Years passed. Barnes continued to work in various capacities within Edison's companies, but he never lost sight of his definite purpose. When Edison needed someone to market a new dictating machine that other salesmen thought was impossible to sell, Barnes volunteered. He did not volunteer because he loved sales or because he needed the commission. He volunteered because he recognized the opportunity to demonstrate the kind of value that partners provide. Barnes not only sold the machine, he sold it so successfully that Edison made him the exclusive distributor. From that partnership, Barnes built a personal fortune that made him a millionaire. The work that others saw as just a job, Barnes used as a launching pad for wealth. The difference was not in the work itself, but in how he thought about the work. This is the shift that transforms work from a prison into a tool. You must see every job as temporary preparation for ownership, not as a permanent solution to survival. The skills you develop, the relationships you build, the knowledge you gain, the money you earn, all of these can serve your definite purpose of becoming economically independent. But only if you remember that you are using the job, not letting the job use you. The moment you start thinking of yourself as an employee, instead of as an entrepreneur temporarily working for someone else, you begin to die. You begin to think like someone who needs permission, instead of someone who creates opportunities. You begin to solve problems for someone else's benefit, instead of building systems for your own. You begin to measure success by how well you serve, instead of by how much you own. Your current job, whatever it is, can serve your wealth-building goals, but only if you approach it strategically. Are you developing skills that you can later use in your own business? Are you building relationships with people who could become customers or partners or mentors? Are you learning how systems work so you can build better systems? Are you saving money from your paycheck to invest in assets that will generate passive income? If the answer to these questions is no, then you are not working a job. You are serving a sentence. You are trading the most valuable resource you have, your time, for money that will never be enough to set you free. You are building someone else's wealth while neglecting your own. You are strengthening the very chains that keep you bound. The wealthy use jobs when necessary, but they never worship jobs as solutions. They see employment as one tool among many for building capital, gaining experience, and creating opportunities. They work for others only as long as it serves their ultimate goal of working for themselves. They collect paychecks while building businesses. They learn industries while planning to own industries. Stop thinking of your job as your career and start thinking of it as your current funding source for your real career, which is becoming wealthy. Stop thinking of your employer as your security and start thinking of yourself as your own security. Stop building someone else's dream and start using their resources to fund your own dream. The job is not the destination. The job is the vehicle, and you determine where that vehicle takes you. Number 5. The difference between labor and wealth. You have been taught to believe that hard work creates wealth, but this belief has made you poor. Hard work creates exhaustion. Hard work creates strong muscles and tired minds. Hard work creates the satisfaction of effort expended, but it does not create the multiplication of resources that defines true wealth. The man who confuses labor with wealth will work harder and harder while remaining exactly as poor as when he started, because he is focusing on the wrong element of the wealth creation equation. Labor is what you do with your body and your time. Wealth is what you create with your mind and your systems. Labor is linear. You work 1 hour, you get paid for 1 hour. You stop working, you stop getting paid. Wealth is exponential. You create something once, it pays you forever. It grows while you sleep. It multiplies beyond your original effort. The fundamental difference between the poor and the rich is not how hard they work, but what they work on and how they organize their work. When Andrew Carnegie was building his steel empire, he was not the man who worked the hardest in his organization. He was not shoveling coal or operating machinery or carrying materials. Carnegie understood that his highest value was not in his physical labor, but in his ability to organize other people's labor, to create systems that multiplied effort, to build structures that generated wealth even when he was absent. His mind was the factory, not his hands. Carnegie once said that he wanted his gravestone to read, "Here lies a man who knew how to bring into his service men better than he was himself." This was not modesty. This was the recognition of a fundamental truth about wealth creation. The wealthy do not try to do everything themselves. They try to create systems where the best people do what they do best, organized in ways that multiply the results of everyone's efforts. Consider the difference between a blacksmith and Carnegie. The blacksmith works with steel all day long. He is stronger than Carnegie, more skilled at metalworking than Carnegie, more familiar with the properties of iron and fire than Carnegie will ever be. The blacksmith works harder, longer hours, with more physical effort. But Carnegie becomes wealthy, while the blacksmith remains poor. Why? Because the blacksmith sells his labor one horseshoe at a time, while Carnegie sells systems that produce thousands of tons of steel without his direct involvement. This is not to diminish the value of the blacksmith's skill or effort. This is to illustrate that skill and effort, by themselves, do not create wealth. Skill and effort, organized into systems that work independently of the creator's constant presence, create wealth. The blacksmith's knowledge could make him wealthy, but only if he creates ways to multiply that knowledge beyond his personal capacity to swing a hammer. The tragedy of the modern worker is that he has all the tools necessary to build wealth, but uses them only to create labor. He has skills that could be systematized, knowledge that could be packaged, relationships that could be leveraged, ideas that could be developed. Instead, he uses these assets to make someone else wealthy while earning just enough to survive until tomorrow's labor is required. Think about what happens in your workplace. You solve problems, create processes, build relationships, develop expertise, but at the end of the day, all of these assets remain with your employer. You walk away with a paycheck that represents a tiny fraction of the value you created, while your employer owns the systems, the relationships, the processes, and the expertise that you helped to build. You are literally paying someone else to own the products of your mind while you take home only the wage for your time. The shift from labor to wealth begins when you start thinking like an owner instead of thinking like a worker. An owner asks, how can I create something once that will pay me many times? How can I build a system that works without my constant involvement? How can I organize resources, people, and processes to multiply results? A worker asks, how can I do this task better? How can I work more efficiently? How can I make my boss happy with my performance? Both questions have their place, but if you only ask worker questions, you will only get worker results. Wealth requires you to think systematically, not just personally. It requires you to build, not just perform. It requires you to create assets, not just complete assignments. This does not mean you should despise work or avoid effort. The wealthy work, often more intensely than anyone else, but they work on building systems, not just on operating within systems. They work on creating value that compounds, not just value that is consumed. They work on assets that appreciate, not just tasks that depreciate the moment they are completed. Your mind is capable of creating wealth, but only if you direct it toward wealth creation rather than labor optimization. Stop asking how you can work harder and start asking how you can work smarter. Stop asking how you can do more and start asking how you can create systems that do more without you. Stop asking how you can be more valuable to your employer and start asking how you can be more valuable to yourself. The difference between labor and wealth is not a matter of intelligence or talent or even opportunity. It is a matter of focus and understanding. The moment you understand that your mind is more valuable than your muscles, that systems are more powerful than personal effort, that ownership trumps employment, you cross the line from laborer to wealth creator. But understanding is not enough. You must act on that understanding. You must begin building, creating, systematizing. You must take the skills you have developed through labor and transform them into assets that work independently of your time. The blacksmith who becomes wealthy is not the one who hammers harder, but the one who teaches others to hammer while he builds the business that sells what they create. Number 6, the spiritual laws of wealth. Money is not numbers in an account. Wealth is not the accumulation of possessions. Fortune is not the result of luck or inheritance or favorable circumstances. These are the effects, not the causes. The true causes of wealth operate in the invisible realm of mind and spirit, governed by laws as precise and unbreakable as the laws of physics. Master these spiritual laws, and material wealth becomes inevitable. Ignore them, and all the hard work and good intentions and favorable conditions in the world will not save you from financial struggle. The first law is the law of definite purpose. Every fortune begins as a specific, clearly defined goal that burns with obsessive intensity in the mind of its creator. Not a wish, not a hope, not a vague desire to be wealthy someday, but a precise, detailed, emotionally charged picture of exactly what you intend to accomplish, by exactly when, and exactly how you will know when you have succeeded. This definite purpose becomes the organizing principle around which all your thoughts, decisions, and actions align. John D. Rockefeller did not want to be rich. He wanted to dominate the oil industry so completely that he could set prices, control supply, and determine the fate of every other oil company in America. This was not a reasonable goal for a poor boy from rural New York. It was an impossible goal, but it was definite, specific, and held with such burning intensity that his subconscious mind accepted it as a command and began organizing his entire life around its achievement. The second law is the law of faith. Faith is not religious belief. Faith is the absolute conviction that your definite purpose will be achieved regardless of current circumstances, apparent obstacles, or temporary setbacks. Faith is the mental state that accepts your goal as already accomplished and begins acting from that assumption. When you have true faith in your definite purpose, you do not hope it will happen. You know it will happen, and this knowing changes everything about how you think and act. Thomas Edison maintained unwavering faith in his ability to create a practical electric light bulb through more than 10,000 failed experiments. Each failure was not evidence that his goal was impossible, but data about what did not work, bringing him one step closer to what would work. His faith was not blind optimism. It was the conscious choice to focus on the solution rather than the problem, on the possibility rather than the difficulty, on the achievement of his goal rather than the obstacles to its achievement. The third law is the law of autosuggestion. Your subconscious mind accepts as true whatever you repeat to it with emotion and conviction, regardless of whether it is currently factual. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are poor, unlucky, incapable of success, your subconscious will work tirelessly to make these statements true. If you repeatedly affirm that you are wealthy, that opportunities flow to you easily, that you have everything necessary to achieve your definite purpose, your subconscious will work with equal diligence to make these statements true. The wealthy understand this principle and use it deliberately. They program their subconscious minds with successful thoughts, abundant expectations, and confident affirmations. They do not wait to feel wealthy before thinking wealthy thoughts. They think wealthy thoughts consistently until their external reality matches their internal programming. The poor do the opposite. They observe their current poverty and let that observation program their minds for more poverty. The fourth law is the law of organized planning. Faith without works is dead, and purpose without planning is fantasy. Once you have a definite purpose and unwavering faith in its achievement, you must create detailed, practical plans for its accomplishment. These plans must be written, specific, time-bound, and measurable. They must be reviewed regularly, adjusted when necessary, and followed with persistent action. Andrew Carnegie organized his planning around the mastermind principle. He surrounded himself with men whose knowledge, skills, and connections complemented his own. His steel empire was not built by his individual effort, but by the organized effort of brilliant minds working in harmony toward a common objective. Carnegie understood that no individual, regardless of talent or determination, can achieve great wealth alone. Wealth is created through the organized cooperation of multiple minds focused on a single purpose. The fifth law is the law of cosmic habit, also known as the law of rhythm. The universe operates through patterns, cycles, and rhythms. Nature follows seasons, tides follow lunar cycles, and human success follows the rhythms of consistent, disciplined action repeated until they become automatic. Poverty is a habit. Wealth is also a habit. The difference is not in the occasional grand gesture, but in the daily patterns that compound over time. Charles Schwab built his fortune not through moments of inspiration, but through the rhythm of daily disciplines. Every morning, he reviewed his goals. Every day, he took specific actions aligned with those goals. Every evening, he evaluated his progress. This rhythm, repeated consistently over years, created the momentum that multiplied his efforts and accelerated his results. These spiritual laws work together in harmony. Your definite purpose gives direction to your faith. Your faith energizes your autosuggestion. Your autosuggestion programs your subconscious to notice opportunities and create solutions. Your organized planning translates opportunities into action. Your consistency creates the rhythm that turns action into results. But here is the crucial point. These laws work whether you believe in them or not, and whether you use them consciously or unconsciously. You are always operating under some definite purpose, even if it is as simple as getting through another day. You are always exercising faith, even if it is faith in limitation and failure. You are always programming your subconscious through autosuggestion, even if you are programming it with negative expectations. You are always following some plan, even if it is the plan to avoid planning. You are always living according to some rhythm, even if it is the rhythm of chaos and reaction. The question is not whether you will be governed by these spiritual laws. The question is whether you will use them consciously to create wealth or unconsciously to maintain poverty. Master these laws, and you master the invisible forces that determine your financial destiny. Ignore these laws, and you remain at the mercy of circumstances you do not understand and cannot control. Number 7. The habit system that creates slavery. Your life is not determined by your occasional moments of inspiration or your sporadic efforts to improve. Your life is determined by what you do every day, without thinking, when no one is watching, when there is no external pressure to perform. These unconscious patterns, these automatic responses, these daily habits are the invisible chains that either bind you to mediocrity or lift you toward mastery. Most people are enslaved by habits they never consciously chose, living lives of quiet desperation because their daily rhythms program them for failure rather than success. Every morning, you perform a ritual. You wake up at a certain time, in a certain way, with certain thoughts. You consume certain information, perform certain routines, make certain choices about how to spend your energy and attention. By the time you have been awake for 2 hours, you have already set the trajectory for your entire day, and most likely, you have set it without any conscious intention or strategic thinking. You are living on autopilot, and autopilot is programmed for survival, not success. The wealthy understand that success is not an event, it is a system. It is not something that happens to you, it is something you do, repeatedly, until doing it becomes as natural as breathing. They do not wait for motivation to strike or inspiration to arrive. They have habits that create motivation, rhythms that generate inspiration, systems that produce results whether they feel like it or not. Consider the daily rhythm of Charles Schwab when he was building his steel fortune. Every morning, before he attended to any correspondence, any meetings, any urgent demands on his time, he spent 30 minutes reviewing his definite purpose and his plans for achieving it. Not sometimes. Not when he felt like it. Not when circumstances were favorable. Every single morning without exception, regardless of how he felt or what pressures he faced. During this morning ritual, Schwab did not just read his goals like items on a shopping list. He visualized their achievement with emotional intensity. He saw himself as already successful, already wealthy, already living the life his plans would create. He felt the emotions of success before he had achieved success, programming his subconscious mind to find opportunities and solutions that aligned with his vision. After this morning programming session, Schwab would write out the 6 most important tasks he needed to complete that day, in order of their importance to his definite purpose. Not 20 tasks, not 10 tasks, 6 tasks. And he would work on the first task until it was completed, or until he could do nothing more on it, then move to the second task, then the third. This simple system ensured that his daily actions were always aligned with his long-term objectives. At the end of each day, Schwab had another ritual. He reviewed what he had accomplished, what he had learned, what obstacles he had encountered, and what adjustments he needed to make to his plans. Again, not occasionally, but every single day. This daily review allowed him to course correct quickly, to build on successful actions, and to eliminate ineffective activities before they became ingrained patterns. This rhythm, morning intention, daily execution, evening evaluation, created a cycle of continuous improvement that compounded over time. Each day was slightly better than the previous day. Each week built upon the lessons of the previous week. Each month created momentum that accelerated progress toward his definite purpose. Contrast this with the rhythm of the average person. They wake up reacting to whatever demands immediate attention. They consume news designed to create anxiety, entertainment designed to waste time, information that has no connection to their goals or their growth. They make decisions based on how they feel rather than what they have planned. They end each day with vague dissatisfaction, but no clear understanding of what went wrong or how to improve tomorrow. This reactive rhythm creates a cycle of chaos that prevents any meaningful progress toward wealth or success. Without conscious intention, without planned action, without systematic evaluation, each day becomes a repetition of previous mediocrity. The person trapped in reactive habits works just as hard as the person following success habits, but their hard work produces no compound benefit because it lacks direction and consistency. The shift from slave habits to wealth habits begins with the recognition that you are already living according to habits, whether you chose them consciously or not. The question is not whether you will have habits. The question is whether your habits will serve your definite purpose or sabotage it. The answer lies in taking conscious control of your daily rhythms and designing them to create the results you want rather than accepting the results they happen to produce. Start with your morning. The first hour of your day sets the tone for everything that follows. Instead of checking your phone, reading news, or immediately diving into reactive activities, design a morning ritual that programs your mind for success. Review your definite purpose. Visualize its achievement. Plan your most important activities. Feed your mind with information that supports your growth rather than information that creates anxiety or distraction. Continue with your workday. Instead of working on whatever seems urgent, work on whatever is most important to your long-term success. Instead of accepting interruptions and distractions as inevitable, protect your time and attention like the valuable resources they are. Instead of hoping that hard work will eventually pay off, organize your work around specific objectives that move you toward ownership rather than just employment. End with your evening. Instead of collapsing into unconscious entertainment or worry, spend time reviewing your progress, planning tomorrow's priorities, and programming your subconscious mind with successful expectations. Use the quiet moments before sleep to visualize your goals, affirm your capabilities, and reinforce the mental patterns that create wealth rather than maintain poverty. This daily system, repeated consistently over months and years, creates a momentum that makes success inevitable. Not because you work harder than everyone else, but because you work more strategically, more consistently, and with clearer intention. Your habits become your destiny, and when you consciously design your habits to serve your definite purpose, you transform yourself from someone who hopes for success into someone who creates success as naturally as they breathe. The cosmic habit law is always operating. You are always creating patterns that either lift you or limit you. Take conscious control of this process, and you take conscious control of your life. Leave it to chance, and you leave your wealth, your freedom, and your future to chance as well. The choice is yours, but the choice must be made daily, through the accumulation of small decisions that become powerful habits that become inevitable results. Number 8. The danger of waiting and hesitation. Time is the only currency you can never earn back, yet you spend it like you have an unlimited account. Every day you delay taking action toward your definite purpose is a day that someone else uses to claim the opportunities you are considering. Every week you spend analyzing and preparing and gathering more information is a week that others spend building and creating and establishing market position. Every month you hesitate is a month that separates you further from your goals and brings you closer to a lifetime of regret about what you could have accomplished if you had acted when action was possible. The universe rewards action, not intention. History is written by those who moved while others waited. Fortunes are built by those who decided while others deliberated. Empires are claimed by those who acted while others planned for someday. Someday is the graveyard of dreams, and delay is the weapon that kills more ambitions than failure, more purposes than obstacles, more possibilities than any external resistance ever could. I have seen countless individuals with brilliant ideas, solid plans, adequate resources, and clear opportunities do nothing but wait for better circumstances. They wait for more money, but money comes to those who move with what they have. They wait for more knowledge, but knowledge comes through action, not preparation. They wait for more confidence, but confidence is built by doing what you fear, not by avoiding what you fear. They wait for guarantees, but the only guarantee is that waiting guarantees nothing except the certainty that opportunities will pass to those who act without guarantees. When Abraham Lincoln faced the decision to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, he did not wait for perfect circumstances. The Union was still losing battles. Public opinion was divided. His own cabinet was uncertain. The outcome of the war remained in doubt. But Lincoln recognized that great moments require great decisions, and great decisions cannot wait for perfect conditions. He acted not because success was assured, but because the cost of delay was greater than the risk of action. The same principle governs wealth creation. When Andrew Carnegie saw the opportunity to consolidate the steel industry, he did not wait until he had enough personal capital to fund the entire enterprise. He acted with the resources available to him, using borrowed money, leveraged partnerships, and reinvested profits to build what became the largest steel operation in the world. His competitors waited for safer conditions, better financing, clearer market signals. While they waited, Carnegie built an empire that made waiting impossible for anyone who wanted to compete with him. Henry Ford revolutionized manufacturing not by waiting until he understood every aspect of mass production, but by starting with what he knew and learning through experimentation. His early automobiles were far from perfect. His initial manufacturing processes were inefficient. His business model required constant adjustment, but by acting while others planned, by improving while others analyzed, by building while others prepared, he created advantages that his competitors could never overcome because they entered the market years after he had already established dominance. The danger of waiting is not just that opportunities disappear. The danger of waiting is that waiting becomes a habit, a way of life, an identity. The person who waits for perfect conditions becomes someone who needs perfect conditions, who cannot act without certainty, who paralyzed by the possibility of failure or criticism or loss. This paralysis is not rational risk assessment. This paralysis is fear disguised as prudence, cowardice dressed as wisdom, spiritual death masquerading as careful planning. But there is an even deeper danger in habitual hesitation. Every day you do not act on your definite purpose. You are acting on someone else's purpose. Every hour you do not spend building your wealth. You spend building someone else's wealth. Every decision you do not make about your future allows others to make decisions about your future. Delay is not neutral. Delay is movement in the wrong direction, toward dependency rather than independence, toward servitude rather than ownership, toward regret rather than satisfaction. The shift from hesitation to action requires a fundamental change in how you evaluate risk. The hesitant person focuses on what could go wrong if they act. The successful person focuses on what will definitely go wrong if they do not act. The hesitant person needs certainty before they move. The successful person creates certainty by moving. The hesitant person waits for conditions to improve. The successful person improves conditions by taking action under current circumstances. This does not mean acting recklessly or without thought. This means acting decisively once you have enough information to make a reasoned decision, rather than continuing to gather information as an excuse to avoid decision. This means accepting that perfect information is never available, perfect conditions never exist, and perfect outcomes are never guaranteed. This means choosing the risk of failure over the certainty of regret. Consider your current situation. What decision have you been postponing? What opportunity have you been analyzing rather than pursuing? What action have you been preparing for rather than taking? How much time have you spent getting ready to get ready, planning to plan, waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives? How many others are already building what you are still considering? The practical application is simple but not easy. Set a deadline for decision. Give yourself a specific amount of time to gather necessary information, evaluate options, and prepare for action. But when that deadline arrives, decide and act, regardless of whether you feel ready. Readiness is not a feeling you wait for. Readiness is a decision you make. Start with the resources you have, not the resources you wish you had. Begin with the knowledge you possess, not the knowledge you think you need. Move with the confidence that action creates clarity, that momentum generates solutions, that progress produces opportunities that analysis cannot reveal. The world belongs to those who show up while others are getting ready to show up. Fortune favors the bold, not because boldness is inherently superior to caution, but because boldness creates results while caution creates excuses. The man who acts while others hesitate does not always succeed in his first attempt, but he always succeeds in moving forward while others remain exactly where they started. Stop waiting for permission to build your life. Stop waiting for perfect conditions to pursue your purpose. Stop waiting for someone else to create the opportunities you want. Start building, start pursuing, start creating. The time is now, not because conditions are perfect, but because now is the only time that exists, and every moment you delay is a moment you can never reclaim. Number 9. The man who refuses to serve becomes the one who commands. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must choose between serving and commanding, between following and leading, between accepting limitations and creating possibilities. Most people never recognize this moment because it does not arrive with fanfare or formal announcement. It arrives quietly, in the daily decisions about how to think, how to speak, how to act, and how to view themselves in relation to the world around them. But for those with eyes to see and courage to act, this moment becomes the turning point that separates a life of reaction from a life of creation. The man who refuses to serve is not rebelling against all authority or rejecting all cooperation. He is rejecting the mental position of dependency, the spiritual stance of waiting for others to determine his worth, his opportunities, and his future. He is rejecting the identity of someone who needs permission to think original thoughts, who needs approval to take meaningful action, who needs security provided by others because he cannot provide it for himself. This rejection is not an act of arrogance. It is an act of self-respect, the recognition that he was born to create value, not just to consume it. Command begins with self-command. The man who cannot control his own thoughts, emotions, and actions cannot hope to influence the thoughts, emotions, and actions of others. The man who cannot discipline himself to follow his own plans cannot expect others to follow his leadership. The man who cannot command his own attention, focus his own energy, and direct his own efforts toward his definite purpose will never command the resources, people, and circumstances necessary to build wealth. Self-command is not self-punishment. It is not rigid control that eliminates all spontaneity or joy. Self-command is the conscious direction of your mental and emotional energy toward outcomes that serve your highest purpose rather than your lowest impulses. It is choosing to think thoughts that create solutions rather than problems, to feel emotions that generate power rather than weakness, to take actions that build assets rather than consume time. This transformation from servant to commander must occur first in your mind, then in your daily habits, then in your relationships, and finally in your economic circumstances. You cannot skip steps or reverse the order. External command is always the result of internal command, never the cause of it. The man who waits for external circumstances to change before he changes his internal responses will wait forever, because external circumstances are largely the reflection of internal realities. Begin with how you talk to yourself. The servant talks to himself with words of limitation, doubt, and dependence. I cannot do this. I do not have enough money. I am not smart enough. I do not know the right people. These statements may seem realistic, but they are actually commands to your subconscious mind, instructions for what to create in your external experience. The commander talks to himself with words of possibility, capability, and resourcefulness. I will find a way. I will develop the necessary skills. I will create the resources I need. I will build the relationships that serve my purpose. Continue with how you respond to obstacles. The servant sees obstacles as evidence that he should not be attempting what he is attempting. The commander sees obstacles as information about what needs to be solved, overcome, or worked around. The servant asks, "Why is this happening to me?" The commander asks, "How can I use this to become stronger, smarter, or more determined?" The servant is defeated by problems. The commander is defined by how he solves problems. Extend this to how you relate to other people. The servant seeks approval, avoids conflict, and measures his worth by others' opinions. The commander seeks results, engages conflict productively, and measures his worth by his contribution to his definite purpose. The servant needs others to validate his decisions. The commander makes decisions based on his own judgment and accepts responsibility for the outcomes. The servant builds relationships to get something. The commander builds relationships to give value and create mutual benefit. Apply this to how you think about money and work. The servant trades time for money and hopes the trade will somehow lead to freedom. The commander builds systems that generate money and creates multiple streams of income that flow regardless of his time investment. The servant seeks job security. The commander creates economic independence. The servant wants to be paid more for doing the same thing. The commander wants to create more value and capture a fair portion of what he creates. The practical steps for this transformation are specific and measurable. First, write your definite purpose in clear, specific terms. Not what you hope might happen, but what you intend to achieve, by when, and through what methods. Read this statement aloud every morning and every evening until it becomes part of your identity, not just an idea you are considering. Second, take control of the information you consume. Stop feeding your mind with news designed to create anxiety, entertainment designed to waste time, and opinions of people who have not achieved what you want to achieve. Instead, consume information that supports your definite purpose. Biographies of successful people, books about wealth creation, content that strengthens your capabilities and expands your thinking. Third, surround yourself with people who think like owners, not employees. Join organizations, attend events, and build relationships with individuals who are building wealth, creating value, and taking responsibility for their economic outcomes. Distance yourself from people who complain, make excuses, and expect others to solve their problems. Fourth, begin building multiple streams of income immediately. Do not wait until you have perfect knowledge or ideal circumstances. Start with what you know, what you can do, and what resources you currently have access to. The goal is not to replace your primary income immediately, but to develop the mindset and skills of someone who creates wealth rather than just earns wages. The man who refuses to serve fear becomes the man who commands courage. The man who refuses to serve limitation becomes the man who commands possibility. The man who refuses to serve others' definitions of success becomes the man who commands his own destiny. This is not a one-time decision, but a daily choice, made new each morning and reinforced by every action throughout the day. You were not born to spend your life building someone else's wealth while receiving just enough to survive. You were not born to accept limitations imposed by people who profit from your acceptance of those limitations. You were not born to wait for permission to create the life you envision. You were born to command your own thoughts, emotions, actions, and ultimately, your own economic destiny. The question is not whether you have the capability to make this transformation. The question is whether you have the courage to begin today. Picture a seed that has spent its entire existence underground, convinced that darkness is safety, that the soil above is too risky, that remaining buried is the only way to survive. Then, one day, something deep within that seed recognizes a truth that changes everything. It was never meant to remain hidden. It was designed to break through the surface, to reach toward light, to become something far greater than what it currently appears to be. You are that seed. Every excuse you have made, every comfortable limitation you have accepted, every reason you have given yourself to remain small has been the soil that kept you buried. But soil is not your home. Soil is what you push through to reach your true environment, where growth is not just possible, but inevitable. The moment you wrote your definite chief aim, you planted yourself in new soil. The moment you began speaking different words to yourself, you started the process of breaking through to the surface. The moment you refused to accept employment as your destiny, you began reaching toward the light that has always been waiting for you. This transformation is not a destination you arrive at someday. This transformation is a way of being that begins now and continues every day as you water it with right thinking, nourish it with right action, and protect it with right habits. The wealthy mind you are developing, the systems you are building, the identity you are claiming, these are not goals to achieve but realities to live from this moment forward. If this awakening resonates in your spirit, if these truths are stirring something that has been asleep too long, then you understand that this is not just information you are consuming. This is initiation you are undergoing. Subscribe to continue this journey of transformation, because what you have discovered today is only the beginning of what becomes possible when a human being remembers their true nature. The seed that remains buried stays a seed forever. The seed that breaks through becomes the tree that shelters others and bears fruit that feeds generations. Your breakthrough is not just for you. It is for everyone whose life you will touch when you finally become who you were always meant to be.